Man, I already knew some crazy shit was going to happen this episode. I could tell from how much camera time they were giving Dale, because Dale never gets that much camera time. So I could feel that something was going to happen to him, and there we go. I wasn't expecting the episode to end that way. Of course, none of us were, but that shit was crazy as hell. But I could tell you one thing. I could feel that something bad was going to happen to him once he went through the tree. But okay, hold on. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. We'll talk about that more when we get to it. But there's a lot to discuss in this episode, as always. There's just been a lot more to discuss this season because it's just been so crazy and chaotic, which is what we expected. I know some people still aren't happy because we still don't have a ton of big answers and all of that crazy stuff. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. They're moving at the pace they're moving at. I'm enjoying it. It seems like we're already past the point for a lot of viewers and fans that if you don't like the way they tell the story in From, you're either sticking with it or you're leaving. I don't really see the creators jumping to any big answers anytime soon. And as far as I know from what the creators have said, we still aren't going to get all the answers by the time the series concludes. So we're still going to be left out to dry when it comes to certain things in the town, because the story of From is way more about the people than it is about the town and the occurrences. So it seems like we still may not get a lot of answers pertaining to how things function in the town and what the town is and all of that stuff. I'm really not sure how far they're going to go, but they made it seem like a lot of those things may not get answered. So, hey, it is what it is. So just like always, the episode picks right back up where we left off from last episode, with Randall being left outside on the ambulance, and we can see everybody dragging him in Colony House, and he's looking at Boyd telling him, "God damn it, you left me there. You left me." And of course, we all saw this coming. Of course, he's going to be pissed at Boyd, but at the same time, Boyd had to make a choice. What did you expect, Randall? Save you and possibly get everyone killed, or just leave one to save many? It is what it is. So then we cut over to the hospital where we see Boyd chilling outside, presumably from taking Randall over to the hospital. And during this time, we see Jade and Kenny walking up with Christy because of what happened to her leg with the bear trap thing near the village. And of course, they have a lot of questions because they see the ambulance parked at the hospital and they're like, what the hell's going on? So Boyd gives them a quick rundown about how Tabitha's back and how they found out that she went through one of the weird trees in the forest and now she's back and all of that stuff. So Jade takes off in this moment and he just hauls ass, just slipping down the driveway, because we already know he's going to go talk to Tabitha. He's been trying to crack this shit for a bit. She's a person who got out and now she's back, and he has questions just like everyone else will, of course. But I would say the most interesting thing about this whole encounter is the fact that Boyd says she went through one of those weird trees in the forest, kind of letting us know that he has spoken to Kenny and Jade about the Farway trees. And the main thing about this whole conversation is that I do think Boyd at one time did loosely tell Kenny about Farway trees, but we've never really seen Jade be informed about the Farway trees, not that I can remember. Please correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong, because I know you will. I'm just saying, I don't think we've ever seen this information shared on screen before with these characters, which tells us that there is a lot of information that they do share amongst each other, because we always want to see them talking and want them to be aware of things, but it seems like some things they are aware of and we just don't get to see that happen. It's not really information that's shared on screen. So who's to say what else they may not know about if they are all aware of the weird trees out in the forest? So my thing with the Farway trees is that I think all of the main characters probably are aware of the Farway trees, but I don't think the information about Farway trees is shared as general knowledge across all of Fromland with all of the citizens, because they already know some people will try to do crazy shit like what we get to see at the end of this episode, and that's more than likely why they try to keep certain things under wraps, to try to keep people from making crazy irrational decisions and doing dumb shit that'll put more people in danger or get more people killed. So after that, we cut over to Henry and Donna over at Colony House as Henry is preparing to see Victor, his son that he hasn't seen in several decades. So this is about to be a pretty crazy and emotional reunion we're about to see right here. So during this time, we cut over to Victor and Sarah, who's on their way to Colony House to grab some supplies so they can go look for Jasper down in the monster tunnels. So once they get there and they walk inside, they see everyone cleaning up the mess from the night before. Victor gets informed by Donna about all the crazy shit that happened and what happened to Nikki, and she also tells him that his father is upstairs. But Victor is not ready to see his dad yet because this is a big situation, so he has to take off. He tells Sarah outside like, "Hey, we'll get Jasper later." This is a lot to take in right now. Then we cut over to the Matthews where we see Tabitha telling her family about what happened to her and how she was in the lighthouse and she ended up in a hospital in Maine. And of course they have questions about how in the hell was this possible, but nobody fucking knows. How did we get here? That's still not possible. We still don't know. There's still a lot of things we don't know. So asking someone how all of this shit happened when they're also stuck there with you, come on guys, we already know. Nobody knows the answers. If we did, it would be shared by now. But of course, that's just part of the dialogue, I'm just saying. So at this time, Jade walks in, and of course Jim is being an asshole because he's like, oh, get away from my wife. Well, just the same old Jim BS. But Jade wants to know. We got to get some answers. We trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. So anyway, while Jade is there, I guess I was incorrect because apparently he wasn't aware of the trees, because the first thing he says when he talks to Tabitha is, Boyd said you went through some kind of tree? And of course I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said.
Boyd said you went through a tree?
And in this moment, Ethan speaks up right away and he's like, yeah, they're Farway trees.
They're called Farway trees.
So I guess Jade wasn't aware of the trees, which I guess didn't really make a whole lot of sense because Jade could have asked Boyd about what he meant by going through a weird tree. Like, what weird tree are you talking about? But instead he takes off to ask Tabitha, which also makes sense. But since that's the first time he had ever heard of anyone going through a tree, it seems like he would kind of jump on Boyd first because Boyd was aware of the trees and he could have informed Jade before going to go speak with Tabitha. But I get that he wanted to speak with her first. It's just, if that's the first time you've heard about this, wouldn't you have questions with the person who seems to know about it already? But it is what it is. And of course, fight me down in the comments, but that logic does make a whole lot of sense. But one thing I do love is that Jade still has the same fire that he had when he first came into the town. Who knows how long they've been there at this point? We haven't really gotten a time frame really, but we know he looks a lot different. Full beard and every damn thing. Hair's longer, so it's been a while. But I love the fact that he still has the ambition to try to want to get the hell out of this place. He has not become complacent. The guy wants to get the hell out of here, and that's the type of attitude you gotta have. He's telling Tabitha, like, we gotta go back to the tree. What about the bottles? Was there anything in them that seems important? Like, we gotta get back over there. We gotta talk about this. Instead of being like everyone else's crazy ass and just knowing that the trees exist and not trying to really think beyond that. Not trying to do any research, not trying to test things out by throwing stuff inside the trees and seeing if they appear around them, like what Victor did in season 1. Like, we got to run some tests on this shit. And of course, during this time, Jim is just being his same old aggravating ass, just not really wanting to look more into this and thinking everything is just a trick and not trying to put forth any real effort to figure anything out. He would just rather sit around in disbelief than try to figure anything out. Like, Jesus Christ. Useless character. Then we cut back over to the clinic with Boyd and Kenny as they talk about the noises that Kenny heard over at the village. And he's like, hey, Boyd, some other shit is out there. But Boyd has a good point because he's like, well, if all that shit's doing is just walking around, then yeah, we got other things to worry about, which is true. We're in a weird place where a lot of weird things happen. And if that hasn't become an actual threat to us yet, then we need to focus on the issues we currently have before we start focusing on all this other weird stuff. Then they go on to discuss the big question, which is, why did the monsters let Randall live? We already know why they allowed Boyd to live. I mean, he's the main character. They want to break him. He's the leader. If they break Boyd, it's like breaking everyone else in town. So that's a big monumental break to happen. But Randall, he's not really that important of a character. Why did they allow him to live? But Boyd tells Kenny that he feels like they allowed Randall to live so they could look at him during the day and think about what's coming at night. Basically a reminder to everyone that they're still not safe. Pretty much another attempt at trying to kill the hope in the town, which of course makes a lot of sense after you learn about the hope and all of that stuff in the woods. But my question now is, why was Randall made to be that example? That example could have been made to be Miss Lou. This example could have been made to be almost anyone. Now, I'm assuming that they killed Miss Lou to go ahead and just kill Kenny's hope completely. But with Randall, there's really no one else connected to Randall in the town. So if they would have killed Randall, no one would have really felt devastated that he was gone, you know? So he could be used as an example for the other people there versus killing someone like Miss Lou, who could also still affect Kenny, which is someone who is really close to Boyd. It's way more of an effective strategic kill to kill someone that is loved by everyone in Fromland versus someone no one really cares about. He could just be used as a billboard to walk around the town and be like, hey, look at how fucked up he is. The monsters did that. So yeah, it makes sense, but it also feels like an example could have been made also sooner than now, but you know, still makes sense. But yeah, like Boyd goes on to say, with Randall walking around, they don't really get to pretend that they're safe anymore because they get to see his damn face. Also at the clinic, Marielle is tending to Christy, and Christy's trying to make sure she's okay so she doesn't start spiraling again and doesn't start her whole addiction saga again, so she seems to be okay. And also Boyd wants to walk in and go check on Randall again, but of course Marielle tells him that she don't think it's a good idea because it's just going to upset him even more. They're trying to get him to calm down. The dude is traumatized. He was fucking tortured by the monsters, so they got to give him time to chill. Plus, there's this thing that keeps coming up about a meeting. So there's going to be a big meeting in town because, of course, Tabitha's back and people have a lot of questions. So of course there's going to be a big meeting. Then we jump back over to Colony House as Henry gets to check out Victor's room and see what he's been up to all these damn years that he didn't have his son. And of course it's a pretty emotional scene because Henry missed out on a lot of time. He just said it was easier to just believe his son was dead because if he believed he was still out there, it would just be too difficult to deal with, knowing that he couldn't find him. And of course all of that's pretty crazy and emotional, but let's jump to the juicy part where everyone meets over at the diner. So finally we jump over to the diner where things are about to get interesting, but Tabitha still hasn't arrived yet. But everyone's in there talking to Boyd, asking him questions and asking Henry why in the hell was he in the ambulance with her and all of this stuff. But the good stuff doesn't happen just yet because we cut away to Julie and her reminiscing on the first night she was there with Fatima. And it's really not anything important. She's just over there to steal weed. She runs into Elgin and they're basically probably just going to go smoke together. Then we cut out to the junkyard with Victor and Sarah as Victor is feeling pretty bad about the fact that he never drew any pictures of his father. He said he never drew pictures of things that came before Fromland. He doesn't feel like his father would be proud of him or excited to see him because his father may be expecting a little boy to arrive and that's not who he is anymore. He's talking about the fact that he's so different that what if it's just a disappointment to meet him? And of course we're just spending time working up to this big emotional scene between Victor and his father, which we're still postponing. We'll get there eventually. You know, we got to drag it out a little bit. Then back over at Colony House with Elgin and Julie, they end up sharing those crazy personal supernatural things they've been dealing with lately. But of course we were already aware of Elgin's situation with him seeing the creepy ass woman in the kimono robe. But Julie ends up sharing with him that she would trade the creepy ass woman for the screams that she constantly hears in her head. And it makes you think, does Marielle and Randall hear these things as well? Because she said she just hears screams now. And then she also gives her take on Fromland and her mom being back, and she feels like it doesn't really mean anything. She feels like the place is just there for them to suffer, which is basically a form of purgatory. She doesn't say this, but that's basically what purgatory is. And of course I've heard those theories before, how people just feel like Fromland is some form of purgatory. So finally we jump back to the point that we've been waiting for, which is to see everyone question Tabitha and to see how this whole situation goes. So Fatima asked her first if she contacted the police and told them about this place, and she was like, I really wanted to. And yeah, everyone's pissed, of course, and immediately everyone gets upset because they're like, well damn, you should have told authorities or someone about this place. Now the cop and Henry try to defend Tabitha's point as to not telling anyone because she feels like no one would have ever believed her, but it also doesn't hurt to try. She should have at least tried, and then of course she would have more of an argument. But you know, the fact that she didn't try, it's kind of hard to argue that, you know, because she's arguing about a hypothetical, right? What would have happened if she would have said something, but not trying it isn't really a grounds for argument. You should have tried it first and then you could have argued about the fact that you did it, but who knows? People in town probably still would have said, well, you didn't do enough. You're in a situation like that where you got out and now you're back in town, and of course people probably aren't gonna feel like you did enough. If you didn't get them out or give them any hope, then basically you lost, and that's really difficult to do. So basically all this shit in the diner just wraps up with no one being happy with what Tabitha was able to do out in town, which was really nothing. I mean, she was trying to find a tree in the park, but that point never really gets across. Pretty much comes across as her not being able to do much, which Tabitha could have done more. She definitely could have brought it to someone's attention, although like Fatima and everyone else says that, you know, they probably wouldn't have believed her, but it wouldn't have hurt to try. And she didn't try, and that's what really matters. But anyway, she takes off and everyone's pissed at her, and Boyd is trying to calm down the crowd because he's trying to keep the hope alive and say, hey, well, the important part is someone got out, and that means it's possible. So just hold on to that. Hold on to that hope, right? But everyone is still upset. They ain't trying to hear that. And then Dale jumps his ass up and he's like, well, where's the tree?
Where is the tree? Had it with your plans. I've had it with your fucking rules.
Let me try. Let me get the hell out of here. And he's kind of getting everyone else riled up a little bit too, because he wants to be the crash test dummy to go find a tree and jump inside of it, hoping that the same thing will happen to him. And of course, Boyd tries his best to keep the crowd under control, but this shit just does not work. And of course, Dale wants to be the one to try it first. But also another important thing about this is that Boyd finally shares his experience with one of the Farway trees to the town. He tells them how he went through the tree and ended up in a chimney. So that's the situation that we're in now. You know, he's trying to tell him like, hey, more than likely you're not going to get out of here, but Fatima wants to fight it because she feels like there's a slim chance that they could leave. And if there is a slim chance, she wants to try it. So let's see how this shit turns out, which we already know how this shit's going to turn out, but let's wait to talk about it later. So over at the Matthews, Tabitha walks over to Jim and she's telling them that, hey, I'm going to the tree. I'm going to take everybody to the tree because I feel like I owe this much to them. I wasn't really able to do shit once I got out, but if I can show them the tree, maybe they'll have a shot at possibly getting out and then maybe they can do more. So that's a fair point. It's not smart, but it's a fair point. After the diner, Ellis approaches Boyd and he's like, somebody needs to do something. Somebody needs to take a risk. And Boyd is being the smart one here because he's like, well, who the hell are we going to take the risk on? Who's going to be the one who's brave enough to take the risk, or who are we going to sacrifice? Which Ellis isn't thinking about that. He's trying to jump in the wagon with his girl and all of the other uproared town folk. But of course, this is not a smart thing to do. And Boyd points that out. He's like, what just happened in there was a dangerous thing because of course that's a rowdy crowd. Those are people who are starting to lose hope. And of course, shit like that will definitely lead to chaos unless we get it under control. So down in the basement, I think, which I don't think we've ever seen this area of farmland before, but down in the basement of Colony House, we find Elgin and Julie playing dress up, like they're getting closer to each other as well. And I don't know, I keep seeing something possibly happening between him and Sarah or him and Julie, but I don't know. Him and Julie seem to be getting pretty close, so I don't know. Let's just see where the hell that leads. But anyway, while playing dress up with each other, they end up finding a Polaroid camera and the shit still works. So I can already guess that there's going to be some ghostly shit surrounding this Polaroid camera in the future. You can already see it. It's written all over the walls. So anyway, after that, we end up cutting back over to Boyd over at the police station, where Officer Acosta walks in and she's trying to give Boyd some ideas, trying to help him out since she feels like he stuck up for her over at the diner, which wasn't what happened at all. But she's like, hey, how about we give these people something to keep them occupied, you know, something to keep them busy. But Boyd ain't trying to hear that shit right now because he's like, hey, you've only been here for a couple of days. You don't really know shit. Get the hell out of here. He's dealing with a lot right now. And of course, she's still trying to wrap her head around the way this place works. So of course, that's not a good idea for him to be working with her right now because there's still a lot that she doesn't know that's probably going to surprise the shit out of her. So I agree with Boyd. Get the hell out of here. Let me figure this out. Then we cut back over to Colony House outside at the greenhouse where Ellis walks in on Fatima eating her favorite meal. And she tries to hide it at first, but Ellis is like, man, I really want to know what the hell is going on with you. So she finally breaks and reveals to him that all she can keep down is that rotten shit she's been eating and how she needs help. And now he knows, and let's see where this goes. Then over in the town outside the motel sign where there's no motel, but there's a pool, Henry notices this and tells Ethan like, hey, how come there's no motel here? And I think this is the first time this question has ever been asked in the show. Please correct me down below if I'm wrong, but I don't think any other character has ever brought this up before and asked about the motel not being there. So yeah, let's see where that goes. But during this time, he gets to meet Ethan and they start talking about Victor and all of that good stuff. But anyway, while they're out together on their walk, they end up actually running into Victor and Sarah, and this is where they have their beautiful reunion. Father and son haven't seen each other in decades, and it's beautiful. Good for Victor. Then over at Randall's bus, we see Boyd walking around inside of there, just feeling guilty about what happened to Randall. Bacta walks on the bus and gives Boyd a pep talk, and she's like, hey, I should have backed you up, but I'll make sure I do that next time because what happened to Randall wasn't your fault. Then we cut out in the woods at the Farway tree with Tabitha and Jade, and Jade's trying to get a little help from Tabitha because he's like, hey, help me get some of these bottles down because there's numbers in them. But Tabitha's like, hey, they're just random numbers. They don't really mean anything. And Jade is like, well, what if they're dates? And she's like, well, this one says 2659. And then Jade is kind of confused, but couldn't that still be February 6th, like 1959 or 1859? I mean, like that could still technically be a date as well. Now, I did just find some weird shit online because I looked up the number 2659 just to see, just to indulge in the crazy theories that we all do. And of course, I found out that 2659 is considered to be an angel number that resonates with nurturing and caring for yourself, encouraging your spiritual passions and personal interest, and manifesting joy and abundance and plenty into your own life and that of others. Now, this does correlate to Tabitha in a way. It is kind of weird for her to come across the angel number 2659, considering that Tabitha is the one who is allegedly supposed to save these children in the tower. And 2659 being an angel number means that she would be a savior. She would technically be a nurturer to the kids. So that is an interesting correlation there that I did want to mention. Also, during this time, while he's out there with Tabitha, he tells her that he actually saw the creepy children that she's been seeing. And then he points out the symbol that he also saw when he was down in the tunnels. And Jade also proceeds to tell Tabitha how all of this just looks like craziness and chaos until you understand the pattern. And that's with the numbers in the bottle tree, or the symbol that's made from the roots down in the tunnels. He's like, we got to put this shit together, which of course are things we already know. But the fact that the symbol was made from roots might be a bigger symbol than what we're actually paying attention to. The fact that the monsters stay underground, and the fact that the symbol was created from roots and the kids laying on slabs of stone, this could technically mean something pretty big. I'm thinking that symbol could definitely mean something towards the inner workings of the Farway trees, because the Farway trees are trees. The symbol was created from roots, so there definitely is a connection there that we just do not know about yet. And one of the biggest theories that I've been thinking for a while, and this kind of continues to support that theory, is that the children are sort of like a power source for the Farway trees. And that's why when Jade was down in the tunnels and he saw the kids chanting the Ankui word, and he looked up to the ceiling and he saw the roots, that was sort of symbolic of the fact that all of those things are inner workings for the way the Farway trees function. And once they're finally able to rescue the children, maybe they can understand the inner workings of the Farway trees, and then every time they get in them, they won't be temperamental. They'll actually lead them back home. But that's just one of my theories. But anyway, during this time, Tabitha and Jade see that Dale is walking up, and of course, he's ready to hop in the damn tree, and he's talking all kinds of shit about how he's gonna be back home chilling, looking for help for everybody back in Fromland while they're there just twiddling their assholes. Or something like that he said, but I'm pretty sure that's close enough. But Dale jumps his cocky ass in the tree, and of course we find out what happens to him. Then we cut back to town where we see everyone screaming and yelling, and they're all chaotic, and they're like, oh my god, like they're looking at something horrendous. And then we see Boyd hop down into the motel pool, like he's looking at something ridiculous, and of course we already knew that it was Dale. And we find out that Dale is basically sort of like planted inside of the damn concrete inside of the pool, and he's just stuck in there, just crammed in with his fingers poking out, like just being crushed by the concrete. And this shit is nuts. And I gotta be honest here. So I had a couple of predictions about what I thought was gonna happen to Dale once he went through the tree. But I was already pretty sure that Dale wasn't going to go through the tree and end up back in the real world. I thought he was either gonna fall out of the sky, like when Victor put the rock inside of the tree back in season 1 and it just fell out of the sky.
What's supposed to happen?
Oh, could be nothing, or it could be...
How does it do that?
I don't know. It works for people too.
I thought maybe something like that could have happened to Dale and he just would have smashed into the concrete, or he would have ended up on top of a sign. I guess either way it goes, I thought he was just going to end up falling out of a tree. I was definitely not expecting anything to this degree, and this is just way more wicked. This shit's way crazier. And also we got to remember, this is always a possibility because like Victor has said before, the trees are temperamental. They don't always work or always take you to the same place. And honestly, a theory here behind the way the Farway trees work is that it might just come down to your heart. I know that's kind of corny, but it might just come down to what's in your heart and how you feel, because Boyd is seen as a good person and he didn't die when he went through the Farway tree. Tabitha seems like a good person and she didn't die. Julie, these people seem innocent and good. Dale seems like an asshole most of the time. He tried to use the Farway tree, he was eager to jump in it and use it, and look at what happened to him. And like I said already, Victor has mentioned previously how you can take a Farway tree and end up under a mountain or something. Like it could be something crazy. And I think this is definitely a callback to what Victor has revealed before about possibly taking a Farway tree and ending up under a mountain or something like that.
Problem is, you never know where you'll end up. It could be somewhere close, it could be somewhere far, or it could be that you end up stuck inside of a mountain somewhere. You're temperamental that way. I've never seen this one before.
Because we definitely get to see Dale here, ending up inside of concrete in a pool just being crushed. But anyway, the episode ends with Boyd having to end Dale's life by just having to shoot him, putting him out of his misery. Or at least that's what we expect to happen anyway, because Boyd pulls his gun out and he prepares to shoot Dale, but before he has a chance to do that, Dale just dies. He just bleeds out and dies. And once again, we have another badass performance by the actor Harold Perrineau, who plays Boyd. He's the best damn actor in the show. I don't care what anyone says, he's the best actor in the show by far. He gives a crazy great speech at the end of the episode about how he's trying to help them, and Dale is the perfect example just standing behind him. It's perfect. It's perfect cinematography. It's a perfect story moment.
Who the fuck is next? I am trying to keep you alive. You think I want to do this?
We already know that this is definitely going to be enough to keep people from going off the beaten path now. I mean, earlier in the episode, the police officer Acosta was talking about how they need to do something to keep everyone occupied, to keep them busy. But no, I think you need an example. And for this episode, with everyone starting to get out of hand, Dale was the perfect example. He was definitely enough to calm everyone down, and this was something that Boyd didn't need to do because Dale did it for him. So as always, you guys already know, I got to get your thoughts on this episode. Please give me your thoughts on my theories. What are you guys' theories after this episode? This shit was pretty crazy. Dale has been around for a long time, but I guess it was time for him to go, and he got a pretty cool death. Probably one of the coolest deaths we've seen in the show so far, so that's pretty dope. He went out with a bang. But anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching.